What if I told you that by the end of this video, you'll take your full-stack application live to production, complete with a working waitlist sign-up feature, email authentication, and automatic deployments every time you push to GitHub? Today, we're deploying with Vercel and hooking up Resend for real email handling. And I'll show you basic steps to a more secure setup for your vibe-coded solution. Let's go! Hey, Alex here from Grit AI Studio, and this is Build with Grit, where we build and ship real apps fast using modern tools and vibe coding in Cursor. In the past few episodes, we've taken big steps. We created a running coach app as an example use case. We set up authentication with Supabase. We built a workout library with admin editing, and then we added user onboarding and profiles. And finally, we created a complete drag-and-drop workout planner. Today, we're doing something really exciting. We're going to production. The first step is deploying our app. We'll use Vercel, which is perfect for Next.js and gives us zero config deployments connected directly to our GitHub repository. There are many options for hosting your application, but I find that Vercel works really well, with no hassle and a great free plan to get you off to a flying start. Vercel is also the company that develop and maintain Next.js, and therefore we get deep integration and optimized performance when deploying Next.js applications on the Vercel platform. Let's head over to vercel.com and create a new account if you haven't already. Click Start Deploying and let's create a new account. We then select Continue with GitHub to connect to your GitHub account. Once logged in, we can search through our Git repositories and select our application that we want to deploy. Now, I've selected an option where I have to manually select the repositories that I want Vercel to have access to in my GitHub account. You can change that at any time by heading over to this configuration for the GitHub app. In the Vercel configuration in GitHub, I can then select our repository for our Running Mind project. Now we can head back to Vercel and we can see our Running Mind project. We can now hit Import to set up our project in Vercel. Vercel will automatically detect that we're using Next.js and suggest the default settings. Before we hit Deploy, we need to add our environment variables. You can either paste your entire .env file here or simply one by one copy each variable name and value over into the environment variables tab in Vercel. Be extra careful with secrets like your Supabase keys. Make sure they're all set before deploying. Here we're only providing our Supabase URL and the anonymous anon key, which are necessary for the client-side Supabase client to interact with your project. When they're prefixed with next public, these variables will be exposed to the client-side bundle during the build process. Don't worry about all those details. You should never expose private keys with the next public prefix. That's the most important thing. So avoid sensitive keys like the Supabase service role key. Once you're done, click Deploy and Vercel will automatically start the build and prepare the deployment of our application. And just like that, you've got your production app online with a live URL that you can share. That was literally a few minutes to get it up and running. So here's a tip for you. If something breaks, double check your environment variables. Most deployment errors come from missing or misconfigured values. So the app is working, but the magic link that we use to log in points us to localhost. In order to change this to our new production environment, we need to make a quick update in our Supabase configuration. Simply head over to authentication and then go to the URL configuration. Here we can see the default localhost configuration. We'll copy our Vercel domain URL and paste that into Supabase and save the changes. Then we'll also add it as a redirect URL as well. But we'll also add localhost as a redirect URL so that we can keep developing our application and run it locally. And now everything works. You'll probably notice that the first time you deploy your app, each page seems a bit slow on the first load, but that's perfectly normal. And after you visit the app once, everything will be snappy. So Supabase email login won't work without a real email provider beyond your own user. So let's set up Resend, which integrates beautifully and has a generous free tier. It's super simple to use across a number of web application frameworks, and it integrates nicely with Supabase. Head to resend.com and create a free account. The free tier gives you 100 emails per day and 3,000 per month, which should be plenty to get you started. Simply create a new account and then you're ready. If you have your own domain name, you can simply follow the DNS setup to verify it, which usually takes a few minutes. Here I have a domain stensby.dev already configured and verified. If you don't have a domain, no problem. Click Use Resend Domain to use a shared sandbox domain temporarily. So once your domain is verified or set, let's head over to Supabase. Head over to the auth section, then click Email and click the SMTP settings section. Click Enable Custom SMTP Provider and fill in your resend details. You can also head over to Supabase Integrations and select Resend here and click the Add Integration button. This will trigger a connection flow with your Resend account where you can grant access to your Supabase project. Finally, you head back over to your Supabase dashboard to confirm the SMTP integration. Using the manual approach, simply go to Resend and grab your SMTP credentials from the project settings. You can create a new API key here. This key will be the password that we enter into the SMTP settings in Supabase. So make sure you grab this password and keep it safe. In Supabase, your settings should look something like this, with smtpresend.com as the host, port 587, and username resend. Paste in your API key as the password here. Save, and now we've got working email confirmations and magic links ready for your users. So now that we have email configured, I'll for now actually turn off user signups. We'll create our waitlist first, and then in the next episode, we'll put in place a secure way for new users to sign up to our service. I simply turn this off now to avoid any unexpected users joining before we're actually ready, and have done the necessary steps to prepare and secure our solution. So our landing page form to register your interest currently does not do anything. So this would be a great opportunity to make use of Resend to automatically send an email to anyone who registers. And then of course capture each registration so that we can eventually convert these to users when we're ready to open up our application. Now, there are a few things to consider when we deal with collecting data about people, and especially data privacy and data protection laws like GDPR in the EU. In our case, we're simply collecting and storing an email address that the user are themselves entering to join our waitlist. This is still considered personally identifiable data, and we need to treat it with care. The most important point in our case is that we only use the data for the purpose that it was collected for. So if you initially collected emails for a waitlist, using them for other purposes like marketing without consent is a violation. We also need to make it clear how we'll use the data and offer an easy way to withdraw consent. There are several dedicated solutions for handling data like this, such as WaitKit or platforms like Kit, MailChimp, or even CRM systems like HubSpot. You could also use something like Google Sheets to track information, but I would honestly avoid that and stick with solutions that are built for the purpose and ensure compliance. Since we already have Resend and Supabase, let's use Resend for sending out emails and store our user information in Supabase. That way, we have a secure way to store the data and can easily access or delete information upon user requests. Resend has features such as audiences and broadcasts, which we can use to add every new address to a waitlist audience and later send a single broadcast out when we're ready. Resend also handles unsubscribes for you automatically. Our free plan comes with one audience, but if you need more, you can upgrade to one of the paid plans. To get things right, let's ask O3 to help us describe the process in a markdown file for us. O3 helps us with the flow here and even proposes future steps for us when we intend to go live with our solution. We also get the SQL to create our new waitlist table in Supabase. It considers GDPR compliance and proposes a double opt-in flow and a way for users to unsubscribe. We'll add our markdown file to Cursor, make a few minor edits here, and then I think we're good to go. Let's kick this off by asking Cursor to implement the logic as described in our markdown file. All we have to do is run the SQL script in Supabase, and Cursor has taken care of everything else for us. We have an email template that we can, of course, edit to our likings. Cursor has created the code to add the signups to our Supabase table and also adds the user to our Resend audience. Let's just set up that table in Supabase. Then all we have to do is add our Resend configuration to our env file. Let's test it out. We'll enter our email and name. And there you go. Thanks for joining the waitlist. Let's check our email. And there we have our welcome email. We can also check the waitlist table in Supabase to make sure that we have our signup registered here as well. In Resend, we can see the email that was sent, and if we head over to audiences, we can also see that the user have been subscribed to the list here. Now, to be fully compliant, let's add a double opt-in flow and an unsubscribe mechanism to our initial email flow. We'll ask Cursor to add this logic as it was already outlined in our design document from our conversation with O3. By doing this, we follow the best practices for GDPR compliance, we ensure legit signups, and we make it easy for people to change their mind and unsubscribe if they want to. I honestly just think this is the right way to do signups. Okay, so for this to work, we just need to make a few minor changes. We need to modify our waitlist table with this simple SQL script in order to add a few columns. And that's it. Now we can test again, and we get an email with a confirmation button and an unsubscribe link. Perfect. Let's test the confirmation. And now we can check the status in Supabase. And finally, let's check the unsubscribe feature as well. And there you go, successfully unsubscribed. We can make sure that this was also registered correctly in Supabase, now with status unsubscribed. The same logic applies in our Resend audience. Let me show you how this works. Here, we see the status was subscribed in Resend and pending in Supabase. When you have joined the waitlist, but not yet confirmed it. When unsubscribing, we can see in our code that the status in Supabase will be changed to unsubscribed. And then you will also be removed from the Resend audience with this remove function. So let's try that again. We unsubscribe, get a confirmation in the browser, We head to Supabase and refresh, and status changes from pending to unsubscribed. And in Resend, the user was successfully removed from our audience. Perfect. Now let's make sure our app keeps deploying every time we push our changes to GitHub. Let's head back to Vercel and make sure we add the Resend configuration to our environment variables. We need to add the site URL, which is used by our unsubscribe function, and then the Resend API key, the audience ID, and our from email. Now we can stage and commit our changes with a commit message. Once we hit sync changes, our changes will be pushed to GitHub and automatically trigger a new deployment to Vercel. If we head over to Vercel, we can see the build process that was triggered automatically. This time, however, we encounter an error in our build. Now we can copy the error message from the build log and ask Cursor to help us out, but very often it actually boils down to how strict Vercel is when building our solution. In order to avoid a lot of back and forth, a good practice before committing your changes and going to production with Vercel is to run npm run build locally. This will trigger the full build cycle that Vercel does when deploying. That way, we can locally remove any of these issues and save ourselves a lot of back and forth with Vercel. It's also a lot easier to do this inside Cursor since we have access to our terminal and the log and can easily add the output to the AI chat in Cursor. Once the build errors are all cleared away, we're good to go and our automatic deployment with Vercel works with no errors. Now we can try our waitlist and make sure everything works. So we managed to go live with Supabase and RLS in place. We're well covered when it comes to beginner level security, but we should always make a habit of checking for known vulnerabilities and best practices every time we deploy our solution. There are too many horror stories of vibe coders neglecting security. There's a good reason that enterprise solutions have dedicated security experts and even whole teams, penetration testing and running audits as part of the development lifecycle. If you're building enterprise-level solutions with sensitive data, you're probably not vibe coding it by yourself. But even for your personal vibe code project, it's smart to focus on security right from the beginning. We'll cover more and go deeper, but for now, let's cover a few simple yet powerful ways to up your security level without being a security expert yourself. There might also be several performance improvements that we can implement, but we can cover that in a future episode. For now, let's prompt Cursor to properly review our code and prepare it for production with security in mind, following best practices. We're ready to go live with our solution in production. Please carefully review our code base and make sure our code follows security best practices. Make sure there are no sensitive information in the front end and there are no vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Prepare it for production with security in mind, following best practices. Now, I know a lot of security experts will probably have a lot to say here about what is missing and so on. But compared to not doing anything, this at least addresses a bunch of known issues. 6 months ago, the context window was too small to even try something like this, but the models are getting really good at these things now. Again, if you're dealing with mission-critical stuff, please go hire that security expert to do a pen test and a code review, or reach out and we'll put you in touch with some awesome people. Either way, we now have a much better foundation than we had before. Cursor added security headers, put in place rate limiting that helps us against the most common brute force and denial of service attacks, expanded on input validation and basic event logging, and proper error handling. I'm not saying this is by any means military-grade security, but it's definitely a lot better than not adding any of these steps to your build. Lastly, we'll head over to Supabase and go through the security advisor. This is really smart and easy to use as it guides us through each step. The security advisor lists different issues or potential issues. We have no errors here, but a few warnings that we can look at. You can click on each of these and use the AI assistant to help resolve or suggest ways to resolve these. Some are simple recommendations for changes to our configuration, while others may require running some SQL to follow best practices with regards to securing our data. Simple as that, and now we're far better equipped. So to recap some best practices for you. Always run npm run build before pushing a change that you want to deploy with Vercel. Make sure all environment variables are added properly to Vercel. Make sure all of your tables in Supabase have RLS turned on and proper policies defined. Make a habit of always prompting for a security review before deploying to production. Check the security advisory in Supabase and Vercel. And if you're dealing with mission-critical or sensitive data, consult that security guy before you go live. We will definitely go deeper and cover more tips around security and production in future episodes, but this should at least get you started. Now that we're live and have email working, the next step is to let people sign up with email and optionally pay to unlock features. In the next video, we'll add a sign-up page, add login with username and password, and connect Stripe for handling payments. As always, if you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next step in this build series. Let me know in the comments below what you plan on deploying. Keep building, keep shipping, and I'll see you in the next one.